Good evening, everyone. Welcome everybody to February's meeting of the Clay County Board of Education. We'll go ahead and get everything started this evening. And I'm going to ask Vice Chair, Mr. Robert Caldwell, if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Ms. Coffey, will you read the mission statement for us, please?
Sure. The mission of Clay County Schools is to build high-quality learning environments that ensure all students learn at high levels.
The only announcement we have is our next regular scheduled meeting will be March the 28th at 6 o'clock as well. And at this time, I'll approve a motion that entertain a motion that we approve the agenda as it was written and presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Caldwell, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And next we have public comment. We do have a couple of people signed up for public comment this evening. So I'll just remind everyone that is, each person gets 3 minutes to do public comment. And we'll start, the first name on the list is Mr. Paul Rose.
Paul Rose. You got my spelling from last time, right?
No.
R-O-H-S. Okay, now you can start it. At your 7th September of last year meeting, you submitted via your stated submission process a question concerning how the board operates within the context of North Carolina's open meeting law. This requires, quote, hearings, deliberations, and actions of these bodies be conducted openly, end quote. My specific request was that the board take a hard look at how you execute your proceedings in order to assure the public is able to hear, follow, and understand them. If the current board's proceedings are all via emails, I submit the intent of the open meeting law is not being met. Since my submission, there have been 4 regular meetings and a number of special meetings. Unless I've missed it completely, this submitted item has not been addressed by the board. I'm not sure why, could be a valid reason, but I could assume several reasons. Either the request was not important enough to make it to an agenda, or the process includes an unstated vetting step to determine what actually makes it to the board, or it was dealt with behind the scenes via email outside of the purview of the public. I also stated in that submission that there are several critical topics before the board at this time that's imperative that the public, who you are elected to represent, are privy to any and all conversations pertaining to those topics. Most critical, of course, is the CRT question being currently addressed by your non-discrimination resolution. To date, I've seen nothing made available to the public about this action, the thoughts being considered, or the proposed resolution itself. As a spark to much of the current CRT concern are the now approved learning objectives that we know do have to be met. It is the development of the curriculum used to reach those objectives that is the responsibility of the local board. As stated in your policy handbook, specific community members shall participate in the development of that curriculum as members of the Curriculum Development Committee. As such, I ask the board to state how those members will be sought and selected to provide that input during the development of the curriculum itself versus merely reviewing the results when completed. Again, I specifically submit these requests to the board. First, describe and discuss your current adherence to the intent of the open meeting law. Number 2, state how and ensure any and all non-discrimination resolution conversations, determinations, and proposed final wording is shared with we the people. Third, state how the board will seek community participation in the process of developing the new curriculum. Thank you, and I hereby submit these questions to Superintendent Cole as the Secretary of the Board.
Thank you.
Got it?
Thank you.
Didn't hear the timer go on that.
I didn't either. Oh, there it is.
Oh, you still had 2 seconds.
There it is.
You go ahead while I fix this.
So, thank you, Mr. Rose, for that. And next we have Mr. Jim Johnson.
Good evening, and again I want to thank the board for this opportunity to address them tonight. I want to kind of piggyback on what some of the things there that Mr. Rose mentioned. As well as my memory serves me, and my memory's not as good as it used to be, but I thought we were going to have some time in the month of January or February an opportunity for the social studies curriculum to be discussed, and I've not heard anything or seen anything about that. I would recommend to this board that they, on a regular basis, have those who are developing these curriculum, particularly for social studies and history, to come before the board and give them an update of where they are. And I would caution the board to be on the lookout for certain things, certain keywords like equity, diversity, inclusion. And these things by themselves are good words, but they can be used, they can be weaponized and used against our students in CRT. I want to just real briefly cover a couple things. The next one is social and emotional learning. It was about 2 or 3 months ago at the board that was addressed, but just in passing. It's my understanding that it was implemented for North Carolina schools in 2020 for grades K through 12. The curriculum was developed for all academic standards, including things like math, English, science, and English. And according to a brief description of this is according to the CDC, social and emotional learning can help children and adolescents develop the skills they need to recognize and manage emotions, set achievement goals, appreciate the perspectives of others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. All those things are good things. And I think nobody in this room would disagree with that. But again, my concern is how are those going to be implemented in the schools? And again, I would encourage the board to take a good hard look at what's being done at SEL and see if it's really appropriate for the students here in Clay County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Next we have Miss Joey Metzger.
I just want to say yes to what Jim and Paul said, like a second or a third. In agreement with that, as a parent raising children, I would be extremely alarmed not to know what's going on in what's being taught to my kids just as a regular parent. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Metzger. With no further public comment, we'll move into the recognition section of the agenda. And we'll start with Mr. Overland and Coach McClure back here with all conference football players.
I'm going to stand in front of you. First of all, thank you, Mr. Cohen and members of the board for taking time to spotlight some of our student athletes. I think it's very important to do that. I'm blessed to work with these guys and other athletes. And these are 4 good ones. They're not only good athletes, but they're good students, all A's and B's, high character leaders in the school, multi-sport athletes. I think all of them play at least 3, some of them 4 sports for us here at Hazel High School. And I know all 4 of them are on our basketball team that's going to win a state championship, so I'm excited about that. These guys were selected by coaches in the conference as part of the all-conference team. I'm going to start with Isaac Chandler. He was recognized as, he was recognized as honorable mention all-conference kicker. Just a little bit of his stats. And all these guys not only do one position, as you guys know, they play multiple positions for us. But he was 28 for 28 in PATs for us. He punted the second half of the year, had a 32-yard average. He played receiver for us. He caught 18 passes for, I I believe 237 yards and 1 touchdown, and also had 38 tackles for us on defense. So congratulations to Isaac. Next we have Logan Caldwell. He was nominated to the Honorable Mention All-Conference as a quarterback. He passed for 2,032 yards, which led the conference. He completed 61% of his passes. He threw for 14 touchdowns. He rushed for 7 touchdowns. Defensively, he had 41 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 7 interceptions, which led the conference as well. So, had 4 interceptions in one game, which I've never seen. So, Logan Caldwell, congratulations. Next we have on the end Taylor McClure. He was nominated All-Conference Defensive Back. He had 104 tackles, which was second in our conference. He had 11 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Offensively, he had 500 yards rushing for us on 111 carries. He had, I believe, 36 receptions for 545 yards and ended up with 5 touchdowns. So, congratulations, Taylor. Last but not least, Kyle Lunsford. Kyle was nominated as an all-conference tight end. He led the league for tight ends and receiving. He had 41 receptions for 680 yards. He also had 3 rushing touchdowns, I believe 4 receiving touchdowns, and had 58 tackles on defense at outside linebacker for us. So, and the most exciting thing for me is they're all coming back. So, they're going to help us win a conference championship next year. So, congratulations, guys.
Come up and shake hands, please. Yes, please, watch the court.
I'm so proud of you.
Right.
I'm so proud of you.
Hey guys, if y'all will hang right here, we'll get a picture real quick.
I think we should recognize the coach for getting up there and saying all that.
It's me. It's because of me.
There you go. There you go.
Right here. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Nice job, guys.
So next we have the NCCAT Holocaust Seminar in Poland grant recipient. Mr. Cole's going to acknowledge that for us.
Thank you, members of the board. We get an opportunity to recognize one of our best teachers tonight. So the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching. I'm missing out on some of my acronyms. The North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching, which has 2 campuses, one on Ocracoke Island and one in Cullowhee. This year they sponsored, and I don't know if they've done this in the past, but this year they sponsored a scholarship for 5 teachers across the state out of any number that applied in order to travel to Poland to learn more about the Holocaust, to be able to bring that information back and share it with our students. It's called the Holocaust Educator Seminar in Poland, and it is for this summer. We hope that it won't be impacted by current developments in Ukraine, but whether it is or not, we have the great honor of announcing that Ms. Carla Beck, one of our high school English teachers, was selected as one of the 5 teachers in North Carolina to get that.
So Mr. Cole asked me to speak speak just a moment about the program. I've seen the list of places that I would visit if I am able to take this trip this summer. We would be visiting Auschwitz-Birkenau along with some other concentration camps, a synagogue. We would meet with Polish high school teachers, which is personally something that I would look forward to the most. And so I don't really know a lot more about it yet because they just made the announcement, but I am a volunteer county coordinator for the North Carolina Council on the Holocaust, and I've been studying the Holocaust in depth for the past few years and bringing that as professional development to our district and to my classroom. So if you have questions, I'll take them, but I don't know that I would be able to answer.
I can tell you it's a 1-week seminar this June, and the scholarship endowment is for $2,500 and will pay for most of the expenses.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you.
Will you be giving a public presentation when you get back? That would be.
I guess that's a possibility, you know, absolutely. That's something to think about. I definitely will be doing some professional development with it, and we'll consider any other options that Mr. Cole and the board might want. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you.
Sounds jealous. Probably my mother-in-law is too.
Yeah.
Don't you? Yeah, she wants to go.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
And Mr. Cole again for the Clay County Schools marketing video.
Yes, last recognition, we have been working very hard. One of the areas we've been working very hard on is improving our communications district-wide and at the school level. One of the parts of this was we have entirely new websites for each of our schools and for the district that are, I think, much more visual, much more engaging than they were in the past. They're organized in a more consistent manner, which makes it easier for parents, especially parents that have kids in multiple schools, which over 50% of our parents do. So it's important for them to easily be able to find information, and that makes it easier when it's in a consistent location. Something else that was a reality was the pandemic has brought into reality for folks living in cities that don't particularly enjoy living in cities but make a very good salary working in the cities, is that they no longer have to live there. They can move here in areas where we have high-speed internet, and they can work remotely. And it looks like that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. So we thought that it would be great. Research shows that when you have families who have children and are thinking about a move like this, the first place they look is the district website. And they want to see what it looks like. They want to know what are the selling points of this district. And I think we have a fantastic school district. I think our county and our schools have a lot of selling points for people that are looking to have a quieter, slower life. And so we had the idea of creating a video, basically a marketing video for our county, Hayesville, and our schools. And we were fortunate enough to have Miss Carrie Hood, who I'll ask to come up at this time, who has some experience in this area. And she's done a lot of work in film and has done some additional work in producing. One of our board members, who's also in the communications business, Ms. Kelly Crawford, deserves credit for introducing me to Mr. Sammy Inslee, who we were able to hire. He's a local guy that does videos for real estate. So he's got a drone, and he's very good with the camera work. And I met with Carrie to kind of give her what I felt like were the 7 or 8 points that I felt like the video ought to make that are great selling points for our county and our school district. And I told her that I wanted to have students involved and staff and the principals and just a small bit of me and to just create a great marketing video for our county and our schools. And I think she did a wonderful job. I wanted to give her the opportunity to just share anything about the experience. But first, I just wanted to play it. And I know it's about a 4.5-minute video, but I think it's worth it because I want members of the public to know that we have it up. So if we could play it at this time.
Clay County North Carolina.
Clay County, North
A
Carolina,
whole lot of
a
charm.
small town with a
Majestic
whole lot of
mountains,
charm.
breathtaking
Or
views,
just
pristine water, and friendly small-town living are simply a way of life here. And whether you're a part of a family who've called this place home for generations, or you've recently moved here, one thing is for sure, we are all passionate about something at the heart of our county, and that is our amazing schools.
The mission is for all of our students to graduate on time with the skills they need and a plan for what's next of their choice. Not what we want them to do, what they want to do. Because that's when they get excited, is when they can focus on what they want to do.
I've been wanting to go to Princeton since I was a freshman, and I got in, and I'm really excited about that. And I think a lot of that is due to the teachers and the support system here, the counselors. I had people write amazing recommendation letters for me, and they really guided me through the process of how to get there, you know?
Even though I would work here, if this was the oldest building on campus, I do have the privileges of working in the newest facility on campus. It is amazing. We have space to grow. It's unique in that everything is contained here. We have our own cafeteria, we have our own gym. The safety is unparalleled because we are in a single facility that has, only designated entrance points.
My most favorite thing about this school is that all of our kids enter through this one door. And so I think that that is great because I can stand at the door and greet every student as they walk in the door. And I know who they are. And so because we've split into two smaller schools, we have about 250, 260 kids, and we know them all. And so each morning having an opportunity to greet them and check in with them every morning is one of my favorite things about Hayesville Elementary.
We were in a unique situation where our kids were internationally adopted, coming from different countries, different backgrounds and experiences, but what we look back on now and are so grateful for is that we had a faculty, a staff that went out of their way to make sure that our students were made to feel like they were just part of the family, they were just part of the community, and from the beginning, our kids have only felt like this was their school, their place to be and belong.
So at a larger school, your classes are broken down into certain mediums, so you might not get to take a painting class or you might not get to take a clay class, whereas at Hayesville, we cover all kinds of different mediums in the class. At the end of each semester, I have an art show that's open to the public where we display all the students' individual art, and we have all kinds of local artists and teachers from Young Harris College, the folk school. Everyone comes out to celebrate the wonderful art that the students create here at Hayesville High School.
We have Gear Up, which is a great STEM grant initiative that we've been working on to really pull STEM into our schools. Global initiatives we have working here on our campus as well. We have teachers that are going to Zimbabwe, we have teachers going to Australia, so we are global even though we sit here in Hayesville, North Carolina.
This is the 5th school that I've been an administrator at, and what really stands out to me about Hayesville High School is the connection between the school and the parents and the community. Those three things come together here at Hayesville in a way that I've never seen before.
One of the exciting things when the kids get to high school is that our school partners with the local community college. And so the students have an opportunity. They can go to early college there on the community college campus, or they can take classes remotely and work towards their associate's degree. So my daughter decided to do that and got her associates, and now has transitioned to Loyola in New Orleans and has been able to transfer those credits to that college program.
On our campus right now, we have 4 gyms. We also have access to our rec department. We have multiple facilities for practice for baseball, football, soccer, which that enables to have easier practice times here at Clay County Schools.
We offer almost 25 sports, men's, women's, JV level. We're very proud of that. So there's something here for everyone. We have success in most all of those sports. We have highly qualified coaches coaching these sports. We're very proud of their progress and the way they've maintained the tradition at Hayesville High School.
Our motto for our district, all students learning at high levels. That was here when I got here, and I thought it was the best motto we could ever have. I told everybody I wouldn't change that for anything. Because each individual student, at whatever they choose to do, we want them to learn at high levels every day.
What we've got here in Clay County is something special. These are exciting times for our schools, where the future is bright and endless possibilities await.
I wanted to thank Carrie. She volunteered her time and effort for this as a parent. She's also active as a PTO member, I believe, at the primary school. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize her and thank her.
Oh God, make her stop. I'm free, so the voiceover. But Sammy Inslee did such a great job. He did the heavy lifting with editing and shooting. He's just wonderful to work with. And I knew Sammy, so when I heard he was involved, I was excited to work with him. But I just wish every parent could have gotten to be in my shoes, because as with any video that's 4.5 minutes, you're capturing many more minutes of footage than that. And so I got to hear all the principals and administration and teachers and parents tell us just from their heart. We weren't scripting it and telling them what to say, just sincerely what they feel like. What makes this such an exciting time in our schools, what makes it a compelling, school system to come be a part of. And I was that parent who was moving here and didn't know anything years ago. So it was humbling and just exciting. And the good news too is that parents may get to hear more of it, because we're able to repurpose some of that footage. I know Heather and I are working on that, with just footage from her that we can put on the school handbook with the primary school, and just different ways already that I've been talking to different teachers and administration about how we might be able to use some of what we captured and just keep creating more videos from what we've already shot. So yeah, it just made me excited though as a parent, and grateful for what you all are doing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. So next we have the report section of the agenda. And we have Mr. Overland with the CTE Work Keys Assessment Report.
Good evening, Clay County. I'm Stacy Overland, the principal of high school. I'm here to share some results from our fall testing with Work Keys and also career and technical education credentialing. So, first of all, a little bit of background on what the Work Keys test is. I think people are more familiar with the ACT test, the admissions test that we use for college entrance. ACT Corporation also offers this Work Keys test. And in North Carolina, every senior who has completed a concentrator pathway in CTE, or career technical education, is going to take this Work Keys exam in December of their senior year. And this is part of federal law that was requiring every public school student to have a report on whether they are career ready or not. The key word here is bronze, okay, just like in the Olympics that we just saw. Bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. Those are kind of the incremental order of the scores that a student can get. And they are in three general areas. You can see them up there: workplace documents, applied mathematics, and graphic literacy. So the questions on this test are going to be more real world, I would say, that people would use in a workplace environment, maybe reading infographics, something like, even making change or something like that. But what the test does, it looks at each of those three areas, and it goes by the lowest score. So if a student was platinum in graphic literacy and applied math, but they were only bronze in workplace documents, then they are classified as a bronze scorer in there, okay? We have 58 students in the senior class, the class of 22, that's going to graduate this spring. 58 of them are on that CTE concentrator classification. So we tested every one of them. The last two just tested last Friday. We had our big chunk of testing in December, and then we've wrapped it up now. So out of those 58 seniors who took this test, I'm really proud of this. 6 scored platinum. That is the highest. Okay, that means they got really platinum across the board on all 3 areas. 12 were gold, 21 were silver, 13 were bronze, and then 4 didn't get any medal category, I guess. So here it kind of shows you, breaks it down for you, a little pie graph. What we kind of notice is the percentage of the pie chart that is platinum, gold, and silver. A lot of times you look at these things for different schools and there's a big chunk that's bronze. They just barely kind of got over the line. Here, almost 70% of our senior class was higher than bronze. So that's really pretty impressive. I mean, we're proud of that. And then, aside from the work keys, students also take a credentialing test or a credentialing exam whenever they complete that concentrator pathway. And there's a lot of different areas on here, and I don't want to go into every single one of them, but you kind of see the breadth of what these offerings are. And if you ever hear the term stacked credential, that one was new to me here, but a stacked credential means that in high school, they're getting their first level of credential or certification in that area, which then they can go on to a 2-year community college and build on that. So if we have a student who qualified for CPR and the automatic external defibrillator, well, that's a basic credential that they can build on later on in their health occupations pathway. So you see our scores here are pretty good. A lot of hundreds, a few 90s, a few 80s. Some of these tests are harder than others, I would say. We can look at the next one. This one had a few really tough tests. Serve safe. Anytime you go to a restaurant and you have a server that brings your food to you or a cook that prepares your food, they've had to pass the serve safe test. And it's tough. I mean, that's a really tough test. You have to know all of those food temperatures exactly. So, I'm not alarmed. That is typical for what we get. Not everybody passes serve safe first time. And then also in the Excel Expert, that is an extremely difficult test. We're proud that 88% passed Excel Core. This is a timed test where, if you're working on an Excel spreadsheet or any kind of application like that, you have that little help button, and you can go to help and type in what you want to do, and it'll show you how to do it. On this, that's all blacked out, so students don't have help available to them. They just have to know how to perform these different functions. So that's pretty impressive. So we will have these credentialing exams again this spring. We do it every semester, and we hope to have more students earn that first credential. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oden.
That's great.
Next, we have the primary schools middle of the year student progress report.
Good evening, Heather Clemens. I'm the principal at Hayesville Primary School, and I have Breeze Raxter with me, who is our instructional coach. And we have put together some data to share with you over our middle of the year assessment data. So to start off, I'm going to go through a little bit of a summary, and then Breeze is going to dive a little deeper into each grade level. So we have 2 platforms for assessment for reading. We have iReady, which you are familiar with. We've talked to you about that on several occasions. And so iReady, we do that at 3 points in the year. We do a fall, late winter, and then again, we'll do that in the spring. And so we get those 3 vantage points of the student through the year. iReady is taken on a student iPad, so they're self-guided through it. They wear earphones, so it reads it to them. So it's very much them and the student interacting with the computer, and it walks them through that. And we have that for reading and for math. Then we have another assessment format called M-Class. And if you've been around education for several years, M-Class is something that's sort of come and gone through the state, and it is back. So this is now what the state has pushed back to us at K3 for a reading assessment. So it's kind of neat that we have 2 different ways to see a student's progress. The neat thing about M-Class is it's one-on-one with a teacher and a student. So it's very much interactive with an adult and a child. So we see some very different data sometimes when we look at individual students. For example, if you have a kindergarten student who's left to an iPad to click as they see appropriate versus a student who is sitting one-on-one with an adult. The other thing about M-Class is its time, so it's a very fast pace. So a student may not appear as fluent on some things because of the time that is set for them. Whereas for some students, the iReady might capture that a little bit better because they have a little bit longer. So just so you know what we're looking at as we go through the data. So I'm going to just do the overview, and then Breeze is going to dig into the grade levels and go through some of that. So the first slide that you see is overall our reading data for the beginning of the year versus the middle of the year. And our goal is to keep pushing up those colors as you move to the right. So we are happy to see that the greens, the students are on grade level, has right at the doubling point, as well as the blue, and we're moving those students out of the red. So that's just kind of big picture.
Ms. Flemons,
Yes.
and just to clarify, this is overall all of your students,
Correct.
K2.
Correct. This is
Okay.
what we're looking at to begin with, is just overall, and then Breeze will go through each grade level individually. Phonological awareness, we've just kind of broken down some of the areas, and that is another good thing about M-Class and iReady. It will break it down into those parts of reading and help us look at those individually. So again, we can see we're pushing up to the blues, which is good for us. That's what we want to see, those kids who are either at or above grade level. School-wide phonics, so this again overall K2, this is where we are with our phonics beginning of the year versus middle of the year. Please stop me if you have questions at any point. We're just kind of doing a big picture on this front end. And then iReady math. Again, this is exactly what we see when we look at the screen, when we look at our data results. The beginning of the year is the bottom line, and then the middle of the year is the top of the line overall for K2. So we're really pleased to see that green line pushing over, because in this perspective, the green is at or above grade level, the yellow is right there on the cusp, and the reds are the ones who are a grade level or more below. So the yellows tend to be a really heavy focus for us, because that's the ones that we know with just a little bit more that we can push them up to the green. All right, so we're pleased. I, as a principal, am overall very pleased with these results that we see here on the iReady. And so just some takeaways from that. Currently, 59% of our students have met their typical growth for the year in iReady reading, and 59% of our students have met their typical growth for the year in iReady math. I know you get a lot of the data talk from us, but typical growth means what we would expect to get from that student in 1 year's time. So we're already over the halfway point in both of those areas. And it also gives us a stretch growth measure. I didn't include that just because it's a whole lot more data points and numbers, but the stretch growth is the percentage of students who would have caught up. They would have closed that schooling loss gap where they've missed out and actually get them back to grade level. So it does show us that data as well. But those were some pretty big celebrations for us. This is the M-Class data that I was referring to. So again, this is just in reading. We don't have M-Class for math in Hayesville schools. So this is that student and teacher, the teacher assessing the student one-on-one. We had 260 students assessed, and 136 of those either met or exceeded their growth, and so we're very pleased with that. And then we're just going to look at each grade level. Kindergarten, we did some mathematical wonders here where we figured what the average class growth was per grade level, and we took that as a sum of the whole and looked at what percentage of our students met or exceeded the average class growth. So for kindergarten, 58% either met or exceeded that. For first grade, 37% met or exceeded. And in second grade, 61% met or exceeded. So neat thing about second graders, this is their first normal year of school ever. First graders, every kid, they've not had the typical kindergarten year, first grade year, and now into their second grade year. So we believe that is going to show in our data to a point, and those are the areas that we're working to address for that schooling loss that we've experienced. All right, so Breeze is going to dive through a little bit of the details for each grade level for you.
All right, I'll be real brief because I know it's a lot. We'll start with kindergarten, and this is just an overall breaking it into just the kindergarten group for our Ready Reading. And so you'll see at the top the overall placement at beginning of the year, and then at the bottom the middle of the year, and especially those students that were in our yellow. I mean, we've gone halfway, and with it being just halfway of the year, and I truly not only contributed that to our wonderful teachers, but we've been able to be in school all year, and that's been huge. This is the kindergarten already breaking it down to the phonological awareness, which is that basis, the bottom part that we start out with their reading. That is being able to recognize your letters, being able to do the sounds of those letters, and you'll be able to see the growth in that, where our students are coming from, and it's really helping us target those students that may still show that they're struggling in those areas. And then the next section is just the phonics, so that's being able to take those letters that they're learning and the sounds and blending those together and to be able to read words and sentences, and you'll be able to see the growth in that, especially those that are in the green now that are getting there on grown grade level. This breaks down our M class. Again, Heather talked about that being a one-on-one, measuring the letter sounds, being able to look at what we call our nonsense words, to be able to see if they know their sounds, and things like that. So you'll be able to see BOI on the left, MOI on the right. We had a huge growth going from red to yellow. And then this is just breaking apart of the composite score, just specifically on the phonemic awareness. And again, you'll see the growth moving those students where they should be. This is specifically with our kindergarten iReady math. You'll see at the top was at the beginning of the year, at the bottom was the middle of the year, and so we see a whole lot more green. I know we, as a school, have focused a lot on our reading this year with our letters training that we're all receiving, and some of the things that our state is requiring us, and a really good opportunity in learning some things, because we have seen in the past with some of our data that we may be still doing some things that isn't working, and so they are helping us be able to learn more. And Heather was always saying, when we know better, we do better. And we're hoping as we move into some more of that, we'll be able to focus more on math as well. This is for first grade. And as we go through some of this, especially with first and second, I truly believe these are the two groups that our district and board will want to follow until they graduate. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like those two groups may have lost the most. You've got first grade would have left preschool in March, and then when they were in kindergarten, they didn't have a whole lot. It was the cohort 1, cohort 2, remote learning. So they have grown tremendously, just again, not only our tremendous teachers, and we've really focused a lot on first grade because they don't have assistants right now and needing just more hands to help. And so we've had some places with our communities and schools that we've helped with that since our last presentation, so that's been exciting. But you can see the growth already from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year with our first graders, and that's just an overall with our reading. The next one is the phonological awareness. Again, with kindergarten first, those are your two big pieces in reading. They can't read a book if they don't know their letters and sounds, and then learning how to put those things together. And I believe too, just being in schools gives them the confidence and being able to learn and be together with their teachers and classmates. And then you'll see with the phonics, you'll notice this is an area that we're still working with in first grade. And considering the amount of time that they had lost from last year, they're still growing. And so that's an area that Heather and I are working with our teachers and our PLCs and with our letters training and finding those interventions that we can incorporate and implement with our teachers and that they can implement to their students. This is their in-class data from beginning of the year to the middle of the year. You'll notice a lot of the jumps moving towards, especially when you get down. I mean, 5% to 10% may not sound a lot, but those are students that are growing beyond even what their classmates are. So I think any growth is growth to celebrate. And then this is their first grade phonemic awareness for the M class. And then the next should be their math. And so you'll see the growth that they also have incorporated in math. And then our last group, which again should be a group that you follow till they graduate, this is their first full year. And I know a lot of the teachers have been worried because they usually know the gap between second and third grade anyway. And so knowing we're going to be taking these kids to the elementary and we want them to be as successful as they can be. And I know that they've had to go back and even just teach your basics, how to walk in a hallway and how to have conversations in small groups because they haven't had that exposure.
Breeze, just real quick, just to kind of help you understand as well, if you go back a slide, Adrian, so it shows green and blue. You see 33% there at the middle of year, scoring proficient or at grade level or above, significantly above on iReady reading. The iReady diagnostic is very highly correlated to the EOG that the state gives at the end of the year to test proficiency. The state of North Carolina on average in reading has been at about 50% proficient as a state, across the state, for the last 10 years. So for second grade students who haven't had a full year of school since they started, to be at 33% close to proficient halfway through this year is a really strong testament to the work that our teachers are doing. I know we're not where we want to be yet, but I keep saying this, we didn't get here in 1 year, and we're not going to fix it in 1 year, but that is extremely encouraging. And I'm not saying that 50% proficient in reading is acceptable. It's not. As a state, I think that our General Assembly and DPI have recognized that, and that's the reason why our teachers are going through such intensive reading training over the next 3 years. So that's exciting.
And for second grade, we dived into the three basic ones, but I added, I'll show you in just a minute, but you'll notice the phonological awareness, which again, you would think or would hope by second grade that these students would know their letters and their sounds and be able to blend and read and move into more of the comprehension. But you can see from beginning of the year to the middle of the year, I think we're just about conquered that, so that's exciting. And then the next section is our phonics. Again, this has really helped us target those students that still the 26% of students that are still struggling in the phonics. Our second grade teachers are getting ready to start some intervention blocks where they are going to be moving some kids specifically that is in that group and working with some of our teachers. And we're excited to get that started and be able to help them. And then I added the new area. I didn't include this at the beginning of the year because we were still looking at phonological awareness and phonics. And so as we move these students closer and closer to the elementary, and we know in third grade it's going to be a lot of learning how to comprehend what they're reading. And so that's an area as well that we're going to start working with our students, especially those, the 42%, 22%. And this is second grade MOY for the M class. You'll see the jumps from each of those colors and the growth that they show on that. Same thing for the phonemic awareness. And this is for their second grade math. And so you'll see a huge jump in our green and closing that gap with those red. And I know some of our next steps on that last slide is what are we going to do with this is we're looking at our students who didn't show growth compared to their peers in their grade level to be able to see how we can work with those students, being able to target our tier 2 and tier 3 students, and then continue to support our teachers and advocate for more hands. And I'm excited about the conversations that is being had for what we look for. And I keep saying fall 2022, we will have finished a whole year and to be able to celebrate the growth, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else is going to happen.
Do y'all have any questions for us?
Any questions or comments?
I just have a quick one.
Yeah.
When is the end of year testing? Is that usually like May?
First of May, yeah.
First of May.
Yeah, so they'll do a third iReady diagnostic, what they call the EOY, in April. That'll essentially give them a last data point of specifics of where students need support. That'll give them about 4 to 5 weeks before the EOG to really drill in on those areas.
And then also on there, we're talking about next steps and stuff, talking about needing more assistance and stuff. So volunteers. Volunteers.
Yes. Yeah,
To
Communities
come,
for Students
to
always
to read,
accept volunteers.
read the,
Yeah.
And so, okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, ladies. Next, we have the elementary schools middle of the year report as well. And I believe
Yes.
Godfrey is.
Members of the board, Ms. Godfrey has strep, so she could not come to work today or come tonight. So being Ms. Godfrey, she put together a screencast recording herself giving her presentation because she felt really proud of her staff and she wanted to make sure that everybody heard it from her. So I think we're going to play this. And then Ms. Heidbreder's going to...
I just want to preface that. I'm Mrs. Heidbreder. I am the instructional coach at the elementary school. And I just want to preface it with the fact that we are abundantly proud of our kids and our staff for how hard they've worked this year. We started last week with a celebration honoring their growth with a theme day, Too Legit to Quit, and we continued with honoring all of their progress this year by kicking off our data notebooks digitally, which is allowing the kids to see their own growth graphically and to help them set goals moving forward. So we're very excited about this and hope you can see the wonderful growth that our students at Hayesville have accomplished.
Good evening, school board members. This is Melissa Godfrey, principal of Hayesville Elementary. I apologize that I cannot be with you in person today, but did not want to miss the opportunity to brag on our school, our staff, and our students, and all the growth that has been made since the beginning of the year. I do have our instructional coach, Ms. Dana Heidbreder, present in the meeting, who'll be able to answer any questions that you may have regarding this data. So let's get started. I'm going to start by talking about our overall reading. This represents all of our students in grades 3 through 5. This is our beginning of year data. This is our middle of year data. As you can see, we have had a 15% improvement in our Tier 1 students who are on grade level, and we've had a 12% decrease in our students who are our Tier 3 students. These are our students that are 2 or more grade levels below. We're very proud of that progress. This shows our placement by domains. Underneath each line, you can see the line from the beginning of the year for comparison purposes. We are currently really focusing on vocabulary. We have implemented a new vocabulary program that we are hoping will help us close this gap for vocabulary. This is our greatest opportunity to move students from yellow to green. And so we are utilizing a program through Scholastic called Word. And we hope to see a lot of growth in this area between now and the end of the year. The program is in full swing. However, it was not put into place until late fall. So we do not yet feel like we've seen the full benefit of the program. To break that down by grade level, you can see here a comparison between our beginning of year scores for each grade level, along with the comparison of where they are now. Just to point out a few highlights, all of our grade levels have increased more than 10% in green and decreased reds. And so we're very proud of that trend. To point out a few specifically, our third grade have increased green from 45% to 63% and decreased our reds from 32% to 17%. Additionally, our fourth grade has cut their red in half from 28% to 14%. And again, in fourth and fifth grade, we have seen more than a 10% increase in their Tier 1 students. Excuse me. So this is a screen I haven't typically shown you before, but I think it's one that is worth talking about. As you know, we're focused on a growth mindset and helping students understand their potential to grow no matter what their academic ability is. So, as you know, iReady sets a typical growth goal and a stretch growth goal for each of our students based on their beginning of year diagnostic. These columns here talk about our students' progress toward their typical growth. Keep in mind, these are not averages, these are median numbers. So, what that means is this is the middle number. So, half of our students' growth was below this number, half of our students' growth was above this number. iReady says that when we're measuring effectiveness, that we want this number to be above 55%. And we're very pleased that we are well above that in all three of our grade levels. This also gives you an indication of how many students in each grade level have already met their typical growth. So we're very proud of that. Stretch growth is a goal that is also set for students. It's a lofty goal that only about 30% of students meet in the course of a year, but that will help students work toward grade level proficiency. These are students who have already met their stretch growth for the year. So we're very, very proud of that. And then we also have our median growth for stretch growth here as well. Lastly, this column indicates the student with improved placement. So basically what this means is that students have improved their color. So our students who are 3 or more grade levels below started out as red stripes. Two grade levels below are red. 1 grade level below is yellow. On grade level is green. And above grade level is green striped. So this percentage is the number of students in each grade level who improved their color placement between beginning of year and middle of year. So we're very thankful to see almost half of our students in every grade level increasing in their colors in iReady. This is a very similar chart. The only difference is instead of being broken down by grade level, it is broken down by where these students initially started at the beginning of the year. So this represents our students who started as red striped. This represents our students who started as red, yellow, green, and green striped. This is their median for progress toward their typical growth. Again, this is the number of students within that group, that instructional group, that have met their stretch growth. Typical growth. This is the median progress toward stretch growth and the number of students who have already met their stretch growth. This is the number of students with an improved placement. And then this shows you how many students are represented in each of those groups. What I love about this screen is it shows that we're doing a really great job of meeting the academic needs of all of our learners. It does show that we need to work a little bit harder in this highest category of those students who are mid or above grade level. We need to work hard on making sure that they're growing at the same rates as all the other groups. But I'm super proud of our teachers and our students and what this represents about their growth and the ability to meet our students' needs no matter where they have started. This is a comparison to North Carolina schools. What I'm most proud about in this screen is that in all three of our grade levels, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, our green and green striped percentages are higher than the state averages, and our reds and red stripes are lower than the state averages. While we're talking about that, I just want to point out that we have increased our striped greens in reading from 13 to 30% already this year. So just to wrap up reading, and I just want to point out that iReady provides us with personalized instruction for students. And I do believe that the utilization of this personalized learning has aided in the growth of our students. Our students have spent an average of 14 hours and 9 minutes in iReady since the beginning of the school year. 81% of our students have an overall pass rate in reading between 70 and 100%. Our instructional priority moving forward is going to be our students who are mid or above grade level. Those are the students whose growth rates are a little bit lower than what we would want and a little bit lower than our other instructional groups. And so that will be our priority moving forward. So taking a look at math, you're going to see the same screens for math that you saw for reading. So very proud that our school has gone from 27% in Tier 1 to 52% in Tier 1. Huge growth in Tier 1. And we've also decreased our Tier 3 from 25% to 8%. So very proud of that improvement in math. These are our domains. As you can see, each of our domains still needs quite a bit of work. But if you look at the lines underneath each of those domains, you can see the progress that has been made since the beginning of the year. This shows a breakdown by grade level and the movement between the colors for each grade level. Again, for these grade levels, you're going to see an improvement, significant improvement in our greens. For example, in third grade, we have 14% green, and now we're at 46% green. Fourth grade, 28% green to 56% green. Fifth grade, 41% green to 53% green. You're also going to see significant decreases in our Tier 3 students. Third grade went from 35% red to 6% red, 19% to 10% in fourth grade, and 20% to 8% in fifth grade. This is the growth screen by grade level. So you can see that all of these are above 55%, which is what iReady says is the benchmark for knowing that our growth is on track and that we have effective instruction in place. This is the number of students that have already met their typical growth for the year at mid-year. And this is our progress towards stretch growth, number of students who have met their stretch growth. And then again, the number of students with improved placement, which is about 50% or higher in every grade level. So very, very proud of that. Again, this screen shows you that we are growing students in all 5 of the levels. So regardless of whether they are 3 grade levels below or on grade level, we are growing those students and progressing them forward. Again, our instructional priority moving forward will be this very highest group whose progress is a little bit lower than the other groups. And so we'd like to increase that. You can see here the number of students with improved placement. So we're very proud of that. This is a comparison to North Carolina schools. Again, what you will see here is that our number of greens is higher than the state average, and our numbers of reds and red stripes are lower than the state average. We have increased our striped greens in math from 5 to 22% this year already. Some math highlights. Our average time per student in the math domain of iReady is 15 hours and 18 minutes this school year. We have 88% of students who have a pass rate between 70 and 100%. And our instructional priority are those students who are already on grade level or above grade level. I also just want to take a minute and say how very thankful I am for our new math curriculum. It provides the rigor that our students need and also provides the resources needed to scaffold learning to meet the needs of all of our learners, whether they need enrichment or they need reteaching. It provides those. It also provides the opportunity for students to take part in lessons that are personalized for them. That's where you see this time being spent on personalized instruction. Our teachers monitor that, make sure students are using that time wisely and on track, and can adjust as needed. I'm very thankful for our instructional coach who has been instrumental in helping our teachers delve into their data and adapt their instruction. That's been such a gift to us. So I just want to express my appreciation to the district for all the things that have been put in place to support our school. And I hope that this data reflects the improvements that are being made based on those efforts. A final few celebrations I want to leave you with is that we have 69 students who met their stretch growth in the middle of the year in one or both subjects. We had 38 boys and 31 girls. 6 of those students were English language learners, 11 were special education students, and 8 students were from our academically gifted program. In addition, we already have 29% of students who have already met the end of year expectations in reading and 20% in math. If you have any questions regarding this data, I'm sure that Ms. Hyde-Breeder will be happy to answer those for you. Thank you.
I just need clarification. So on that one, on those couple of slides in reading and math, where she was saying that top level, that's the kids that were already on reading level and everything.
Yes.
We just need to.
Yes, those are the kids that at the beginning of the year were already striped green, which means they were at the mid or end of the year of their current grade level. So that's, those are the kids who are not moving as much as the rest of our kids that were at the very beginning of grade level or below.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification.
Differentiation between all the different levels in a classroom is always the most difficult thing. And of course, over the past 2 years, our students who have resources at home, which include, parents or other family that make sure they read to them and that sort of thing, have been able to, really have a large impact on their kids while they were at home. Whereas our students that didn't have access to that has had a larger negative impact. So there's a larger span between students in their reading and math this year than there has ever been. So, so trying to meet the needs of those students that are way behind while still meeting the needs of those kids that are 2 grade levels above is as difficult as it's ever been.
Sure. But it seems like even during the summer remediation classes or summer learning, that helped some.
It did.
To bring them up to speed.
And we will still have a reading camp this summer for grades K-3 like we have in the past. It doesn't sound like we're going to have a summer camp for everybody this summer like we did last summer because that was mandated by the state. But we will still have a reading camp for K-3 for those students that need it.
Good.
Good. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate all the work. Next, we have the 21-22 summer state exam accountability.
Yes, members of the board, you have this handout in your folder. It's titled CCS Summer Accountability Plan. It's end of grade and end of course re-administrations. Just very quickly, the state of North Carolina has always allowed school districts to do an additional, what they call a summer learning program after EOGs and EOCs are finished. They will not allow you to call it a retesting program. It's a reteaching program. But students that do not score proficient on their state exams, if the students voluntarily or their parents voluntarily agree to bring them to school for some remediation, and there's no time limit set on that. It could be 1 hour or it could be a week. But if they come in for some remediation and additional teaching, they qualify to sit for the state exam again to see if they can score proficient. Clay County Schools had never done that in the past, I've been told. As a former accountability director in another district, we did this and had some really good results from it because you'd be amazed. I mean, pretty much every year we would capture 15% or so of students that did not score proficient that would score proficient when they took that test a second time. So my experience is it's very worth the effort, and our leadership team has agreed that we need to make this effort this year. So we cannot do remediation during student days. It has to be after the end of the student school year. So we're going to do some remediation on all of our tested subjects the week after students are done, a few hours in each of the subject areas, and then we're going to provide a re-administration of the state exams.
So would it replace the previous score that they made on the test, or would it be an average, or
So
nothing at all?
it would allow us to improve our proficiency percentage if they score proficient, but it does not replace the score. Okay, but if they score proficient the second time, we get credit for that as a school system. But you can flip through that presentation. I think I've pretty much covered all of it. There are some rules involved. We have to present our plan. We have to have a first read, so you can't approve it this month. So this is just a first read for it, and then we can approve it at the March meeting because it has to be submitted to the state by April 1st. And I think that covers it. It does cover all of the EOG and EOCs, and we're gonna do them all. Student participation is voluntary. Parents or guardians make the final decision regarding whether a student attends remediation. If they don't attend remediation, then they're not eligible to retest, and then they're held harmless if they don't participate. I mean, they don't get a worse grade. They just keep the grade that they had originally, and that's it. So it's just for a first read, and I'll submit the plan itself at the March meeting, where I'll share the plan with you now, but we'll have to vote on it at the March meeting.
So next we have a report on the foreclosure proceedings.
Yes. So this is in your packet. You will recall that there was a foreclosure quite a number of years ago of a property on Bethabara Road in Shooting Creek that has just kind of been floating out there for years and years and years. We have pushed this forward by hiring an attorney to kind of manage this process. The county manager, Miss Debbie Mauney, gave me the name of this attorney because this is the attorney that handles foreclosures for the county. You can flip through and read this, but the important parts are that the things will be moving forward on the foreclosure process. We do not currently own the property. Okay, so once a property goes into foreclosure, it has to be offered for bid to the public at the courthouse. So that is happening in March, and then if I guess the minimum is not met or no one offers a bid that the court will accept, at that point, then the property would be turned over to the school board as property, and then we would probably put it up for sale at that point again, because there's really no reason for us to own property on Bethabara Road. So I don't think we're going to be building a school out on Bethabara Road anytime soon. So plus, if the school board owns it, no one is paying taxes on the property. So it would be better if someone owned it that would be paying property taxes. So that's kind of where we are, and the details are in that handout.
Any questions about that problem? If not, we'll move to the Handle with Care program.
Yes. This is a one-pager. I just wanted to make the board aware. We had discussed this several months ago. There are several other states that have started this program. Essentially, this is a partnership between the school system and the sheriff's department. Many times, speaking of social emotional learning, things happen outside of the school district at home that impact how our students come to us. For example, trauma that happens when a warrant is served and arrest is made, maybe of a parent or a sibling at home. Sometimes, a lot of times, that happens late at night or very early in the morning. Then those students get on a bus. They're upset, they're traumatized, they didn't get any sleep. They get off the bus, we know nothing about it. And sometimes all it takes is, some other kid to make a remark, and then there's a fight, and then we have to deal with all of the after effects of that. Whereas if our principals and counselors were made aware,
we don't need to know the details. We just need to know that something traumatic happened at a child's home, and that we need to check on that kid immediately when they get on campus. And so the Handle with Care program provides that. So just if you read through the green solutions at the bottom, solution step 1, law enforcement encounter children at a scene. They ask the guardian if the child is in school in the district and if they would like to share a Handle with Care notice with the school. Guardians or parents can elect to share the child's name, age, and school with the officer. So it's up to the parent or guardian. Step 2, officers share a notice with no specific details of the trauma with the trauma-informed school system, which would be Clay County Schools. In step 3, schools provide trauma-sensitive support if it is required. Teachers are trauma-informed. School system uses their triage process in the event the child needs additional support. So that is an example where, that might be a kid that if they are extremely upset, their education that day is with the counselor or with administrators, so that we could deal with the trauma first as opposed to putting them in a classroom if they're not ready. Other kids are fine. And once we determine that, then they would go through their normal day. But it just allows us to be informed by the Sheriff's Department only with the information we need to know and at the parent or guardians with their approval. So we are instituting this with the Clay County Sheriff's Department. Really excited about it. I think it's just another piece of what we're trying to do with social emotional learning in our district to meet the needs of our students so that they're prepared to learn every day.
Is that something that, like, Ms. Terry Hager would be informed of initially?
As school social worker, she would be the point of contact along with the counselors and or principals. So, yeah.
Next item is the first read. We have a new version of the anti-discrimination resolution that Ms. Beck has emailed, thankfully, to the board. And we have a printed copy here as well. And we also have a new version. There were some questions about the one that Richard Swartz had presented, and so he has come up with a second draft of his original version that is there as well.
Yes, members of the board, we had a version of this resolution on the agenda last month initially, but due to some late input on it, we decided to remove it from the agenda because with that input, we felt like we needed to provide our board attorney with that information so he could make some updates and changes. I received the updated version of his, I think yesterday, and I also received a version that Ms. Beck submitted that I also shared with Mr. Schwartz today, and he took a look at it. I informed everyone of this by email just late today because the board had asked that he review any of this, and he had no legal issues with any of it. He felt like either one of these resolutions were fine legally. So I've provided you with both. Because both of them are new versions that you haven't seen before, I've put it on as a first read so that we can talk about it further at the March board meeting, and you can act on it or not as you see fit.
Thank you for that. So that's there for the first read. You've got both of those resolutions.
Yes.
Okay. Next is the action items in the agenda. So we have the recommendation to approve the use of the kitchen scholarship funds at HHS by the scholarship committee.
Yes, members of the board, I've provided you with this a couple of different times in the past. All we have, again, this is money that was left to the school system for providing scholarships to students who elect to go to or to pursue a career technical education degree or to attend a technical school for a career. And so all I have added in is that when that letter was completed by the family, and this was 15 or 20 years ago, there was no such thing as career and college promise. which provides our high school students with the opportunity to take not only college prep credits at the community college, but also career and technical education credits at the community college. And one of the things that keeps our students from taking, our CTE students from taking advantage of those classes at the community college is that most of them require equipment. So a student that would like to take welding as an 11th grader, they've got to provide their own welding helmet, their own gloves. They've got to provide equipment that is expensive. And so that's a problem with access, because not every kid, if they can't afford the equipment, then they really don't have access to the class. And so what I would like to do with these funds as well is to be able to have the scholarship committee decide when a student applies, they could elect to award that student a scholarship in the amount that it would take to buy that equipment so that they have access to the CTE course at the community college. Because they would be taking a college level class. They're just doing it as a high school student. And that wasn't possible 20 years ago when this letter was written by the family. So that's the only thing that I've added. But it can also still be used by the scholarship committee at Hayesville High School to decide on an annual scholarship in the amount that they choose for the number of students that they choose each year who intend to pursue a degree in a career and technical education field.
So you've heard that recommendation for the use of the kitchen scholarship funds. Is there any questions or comments about that? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve that recommendation. Mr. Caldwell.
I'll second it.
Ms. Crawford, second. All in favor? Thank you. And next we have the possibility of a grant and a total of $40 million to build a new building, grades 3 through 8, that would replace the existing elementary school and the existing middle school. So, Mr. Cole, would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, members of the board, you will recall that we elected to use $10,000 of our capital outlay funds last year to hire the Boomerang Design Group, who designed and were the architects of Hayesville Primary School, to come up with plans for 3 different options of different sizes that would meet the building needs of our school district for the next 40 years. The smallest one was just adding a building behind the elementary school that would replace all 4 of the trailers that we're currently using as classrooms that are falling apart, and adding a nurse's office because we're currently using a trailer as a nurse's office. So that was the cheapest option. The second option was a 12 classroom, 2-story addition where we would demo the 2 pods where we used to have kindergarten and 1st grade. We would get rid of the trailers and we would do 12 classrooms where the pods are now, and they would replace the 8 classrooms that the pods provide plus the 4 trailers. The third option would be to build a 3 through 8 school that would replace the middle school and the elementary school and the trailers and the pods and the auditorium and the cafeteria that serves the entire main campus and the middle school gym. It would leave the rock gym in place because the rock gym is in great shape, and the CTE building, this building, would remain in place. So at that time, I just wanted to have some plans in place. I didn't know where we were going to get the money, but I knew we were going to have to do something because we have a very large kindergarten class that's going to be coming to the elementary school in 3 years. And we'll see what next year's kindergarten looks like. It may be large as well, and if it is, this is really going to become urgent. But in the meantime, about a month ago, we found out that Clay County qualified for a state needs-based grant through the lottery system again, and this time with no local match. We could get $30 million for an elementary, up to $30 million for an elementary school, up to $40 million for a middle school, and up to $50 million for a high school with no local match. Now, it's a competitive grant. Not everybody that applies is going to get it. There are 8 criteria, but we strongly meet 6 of those criteria. So I feel like we've got a good chance. If we don't get it this year, we can apply again next year. It's no problem. But what I did share with you, I removed all the other 2 options, and I just included the 3 through 8 school. I've shared this with you before. And I had asked Boomerang to project out if we were to build this school in 5 years, what they thought it would cost. And so they put the price at just a little over $43 million, 5 years out. Now, they created this almost a year ago. Obviously, there's been a little bit of inflation since then. But I still say that if the county can invest $3.5 million in order to get $40 million to build a 3 through 8 school, along with a brand new gym and an auditorium that serves the entire campus, and a cafeteria that serves the entire campus, it's well worth the investment. So what I'm asking for is just your approval for me to submit this grant to the state to get $40 million, hopefully to build a new 3 through 8 school right behind this building with no local match from the county. Now, if it ends up costing $43.5 million, then the county would have to pay that $3.5 million, but that's not a match. That's a piece, a small piece. So.
And that grant is due in March?
The grant is due by March 15th, and supposedly we will know something from the state by April 12th on whether we were selected or not.
Does that mean we'd be ready to start building next fall?
Well, so we kind of have a plan, but we would have to post an RFP for a design and give other companies an opportunity. I just chose Boomerang because I knew them and they did a great job with the primary school, and this wasn't a real design RFP. I just wanted to know if a 2-story 3 through 8 school with those other components would fit back here while still allowing us to have school in the current middle and elementary at the same time, rather than having to build a trailer park somewhere while we build a school. And so they say we can do it and it will fit. So we would do an RFP for a design and then select an architect, which would take probably about 2 to 3 months. At that point, the architect would be charged with building construction plans, which is about a 9-month process, detailed construction plans that a general contractor can bid on. So now you're looking at about a year. And so then at the year mark, when we have those plans, we post those with an RFP for construction. That'll take about 3 months to select a general contractor. So you'd be looking at, about a 1.5 years before you could ever start. But
this is great.
That would be the process.
Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting. Very exciting.
Any other questions or comments? If not, you heard their recommendation, so I entertain a motion to approve that recommendation.
Make a motion that we approve and go forward with it.
Mr. Jones.
And I'll second it.
Ms. Beggs, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And next, we have a recommendation to approve NCDPI's request for first grade class size waivers.
So you have a handout, legislative class size reports. We'll move through this real quick, but essentially a couple years ago, the North Carolina General Assembly passed a law that put restrictions on class size for grades K through 3 that we could not go beyond. So there were individual class size limitations as well as a district class size limitation. This information is collected through Power School by DPI in the fall and in the spring. So the numbers that were collected in the fall came out November 30th. The spring collection was taken today. And so again, it's just average class size is what is collected, and it's monitored throughout the year. It comes through the Power School reports summary. So the requirements are in kindergarten, 1 teacher per 18 students. State law, you can't go beyond that without a waiver. First grade is 1 teacher per 16 students. Second grade is 1 per 17, and third grade is 1 per 17. So, you will see that at the end of the second school month, the sizes of the individual classes in kindergarten through third grade, what they shall not exceed at that point. So they do allow, after that count, they allow you to go a little beyond that for kids moving in and that sort of thing, which can happen. But they can't go beyond 21, 19, 20, and 20. And so Hayesville Primary School meets the criteria for school level, but the school exceeds the district numbers. So when that happens, a school system can request a waiver of the class size requirement. Waivers are only required for regular classes, not for enhancement classes like art. We're going to submit a class size waiver for our first grade if the board approves. Our current ratio in first grade is 1 for 16.4 students. We are 4/10 of a student over on the class size requirement. We met the requirement in the fall because of all of our students that were taking school remotely at the beginning of the year. Once the board removed that option at Christmas, they all, well, not all, but most of them came back in January. That's what put us over. So we don't really want to hire another teacher at this point to get us under 16. We're hopeful that the state will approve this waiver if we submit it with the board's approval.
Any questions or comments on the waiver, class size waiver?
What is our student count in first grade? Do you know, Heather? Sorry, I put you on the spot. Okay, there you go.
I will tell you that I want to get this right because I have to submit a sworn affidavit that it's true. And if I don't, if the State Board of Education determines that I have willfully failed to comply with these requirements, then no state funds can be allocated to pay my salary. And so I want to make sure that we're in compliance with this.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the waiver for class size. Mr. Caldwell.
No, second.
Ms. Beggs, second. All in favor? Aye. Next, we have the 2022-2023 district calendar.
Yes, so as always, we had a district calendar committee. That is this handout, and it's up on the screen as well. We wanted to make sure that we got our calendar in place in February this year, which would allow our high school to go ahead and start working on the master schedule and registration for high school students in March, because the sooner they can get that in place, the easier it makes the whole process and the better we can communicate to parents. You'll see that the calendar committee was made up of leadership as well as teachers, as well as parents from each of our schools. Also, for the first time, we had a student representative from Hayesville High School. I believe Mr. Jackson Lance, he's on student council, is he not, Mr. Overland? Yes, so he's an elected member of our student council, and he had a voice on our calendar committee as well. And then really Becky Stewart, our Director of Accountability, ran this for the school district. The next slide just kind of shows what the state requires. You really don't have as much flexibility as you would think in North Carolina due to the North Carolina calendar law, which I would be ecstatic if they would do away with, but they haven't. I would really like for us to be on the same calendar as the community college, but so far the General Assembly has not been open to that idea. I hope they change their mind at some point. But we have to have a minimum of 105 days or 1,025 instructional hours. Our first day has to be the Monday closest to August 26th, unless a waiver is granted, which we don't have one anymore for waiver. We can have 10 or 11 holidays. We must have 10 built-in annual leave days. We must have 195 teacher working days. No school is allowed on Sundays, and the last day is the Friday closest to June 11th. These are some of the other considerations. We will not receive a weather waiver for this school year. Therefore, we have to start school on the Monday closest to August 26th through August 29th. Remote learning days were only required last year. They are optional at any time, subject to school board approval. High school testing before the holidays or after students return. This year, we experimented a little. We've always had the weather waiver, which allowed us to start school early, which allowed us to have exams before Christmas break while still having the same basic size for each semester. Because we no longer got the weather waiver, we could not start early, but last year's calendar committee decided they still wanted to have the exams before Christmas break. The only way to do that is for fall semester to be 2 to 3 weeks shorter than spring semester. Upon further reflection this year, the high school teachers, I think, for the most part, said they no longer want to do that. They want to have the additional instructional days in the fall, which means we'll have exams in January. So we'll return from Christmas break. We'll have about a week or two of classes where we can review. Then we'll have state exams. And so we've also included days for the letters training for our K-3 teachers. That's language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. That's what that acronym stands for. That is mandated by DPI for all K-5 teachers. That is extensive work. There are 8 modules per unit for 2 years. And each unit requires 6 hours of training for each module, virtual or face-to-face, as well as 10 hours of online coursework. So it's like taking college courses for our K-5 reading teachers. The next slide just shows how many times the calendar committee met. The next slide shows option 1, both in a list and in calendar form. Then we move into option 2 in list and calendar form. And then just sort of a side by side. We have had, like I said, parent input on this through our parent representatives from each school. So parents and students and teachers and principal have had a voice. I can also tell you that I completed a survey for the entire Clay County Schools staff on their choice, and just short of 93% said they wanted option 2. So I'll give you that. I know I have put it on the action agenda, and I hope that the board would approve my recommendation that we go with option 2 for next year's district calendar. But certainly, if you would like more time to look at it, you can elect to wait and talk about it again next month. But again, the value of doing it now is that that allows us to move forward with registering our high school students for classes for next year this month.
I've got a question. You said you recommend option 2.
Yes.
Now, on that being, if you want an option 2, you're stating that you're going to do testing after Christmas, correct?
That's correct.
And option 1.
High school testing, yes.
Yes, high school testing. Option 1, then you'll be doing it before Christmas, correct?
Both of those. I think
both. Are you saying both? You're wanting both, option 1 and 2.
In either of those options, state testing would be after Christmas break.
Can we get data also showing after the end of this year or next year, showing data how the kids did the years before, testing before Christmas or after Christmas?
Well, I mean, certainly we can, but you're talking about two entirely different groups of kids. Because in the high school, you've only got 3 tests. You've got math 3, English 2, and biology. So different groups move through those grade levels. But yes, you can compare data to.
I'd be interested to see how well these kids will perform, because you're showing before and after. So if you have the data from last year, then you'll show the other, correct?
I didn't see.
Yeah, we're always going to do a comparison from one year to the next.
I noticed that one gives 170 days of instruction and the other gives 175.
And I think, of course, you guys are retired teachers, but I know one of the things that I've heard teachers mention a lot is not having a lot of work days and preparation days. So option 2 gives more work days.
Seems like we had a harder time with the kids doing well after Christmas, because you had very few days to go over and they'd already forgot. They're ready for the next. So that's what I'm seeing as a teacher, what I experience.
But I don't think we have the option of letting them take tests after Christmas. We don't have the option of doing that after Christmas, right? Because of the start date, because that first semester is so short. That's what you're saying. The teacher.
Well, we can, but the only way to do it is the way we did it this year, which means that all of the classes in the fall semester have about 10 to 15 less days than the spring semester classes.
Right. But you were saying, and Overland said
16?
It's 81 in the fall and 97 in the spring.
Yeah. And you were saying that the teachers didn't want that.
What my teacher said is that they would prefer to balance out the semesters, provided we didn't start testing like the first day back in early January.
Right.
They wanted about a week or so
to
knock
review.
the rust off. And, yes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they get shorted class time
with
in these particular different classes.
Well, and it's just, if we had local control of our calendar, we could just start earlier.
Yeah.
But with the calendar law that North Carolina has that says that you have to start the Monday closest to such and such date, I mean, we're not allowed to do that. And the community colleges, all of them start about 2 weeks before we do. So when we have kids that are taking community college classes at the high school, which is a lot of kids, they actually start like 2 weeks earlier than the other kids do.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, that's my only thought, is that, one provides 175 days and the other provides 170. I just,
Well, and we always build additional time into the calendar for weather. So with one, we've got a few more days built in case we needed them than the other. And then option 2 has more teacher work days than option 1. So that the teachers can do the letters training manually, because that is a bear.
Well, when is graduation on option 1 and option 2?
Well, we set graduation pretty much whenever we want.
Right. Pretty much whenever testing is done.
Yeah. So.
Which I'd have to go back and look at those calendars.
Looks like
On there.
Yeah, it is.
Second on 2.
So June 2nd on option 2
versus June 9th, June 10th.
June 10th on option 1.
Yeah.
So you're recommending option 2.
I'm recommending option 2.
And you said that you had that survey and over 93-ish%.
It was 92.6% of the staff wanted option 2.
Okay.
That's pretty overwhelming. So.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, we've heard Mr. Cole's recommendation to approve the 2022-2023 district calendar as presented in option 2. So is there a motion to?
I'll make the motion to
Ms.
approve.
Crawford makes a motion for option 2. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Ms. Beck, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And next we have Ms. Hollingsworth with budget amendments.
the state public school fund first. We've got an additional $620,455 to budget, and in those budget adjustments, you'll see down at the bottom the notes for those. There was a reduction of $20,832 total, and that was for the North Carolina Virtual Private School that they take away from us from our allotment. First month, ADM, the average daily membership, that was an adjustment for that, and then EC head counts. And then I'm going to just go over briefly each of the other line items that we actually received money for. We've received $10,776 for CTE credential allocation, $14,892 in the school tech fund for fines and forfeitures allocation, $70,344 for our behavior support grant allocation, $8,882 for the principal bonus allocation, $90,554 for the transportation second installment allocation, and that's after they do their efficiency ratings based on ridership. $6,000 for the transportation stop arm camera allotment. $50,405 for the CTE expansion grant allocation, and that funds the additional CTE position at the middle school. We received an additional $361,856, which we'll go over here in just a moment, for the supplemental funds for teacher compensation allocation. And then an additional $27,581 for letters and science of reading allocation. Do you have any questions on the state public school fund? Okay. Moving along to the federal grants fund, we received an additional $85,137 in that fund. $85,083, which is the majority of it, was for PRC 203, which was where we were able to give the COVID mitigation training bonus for teachers and instructional support. But we are looking into doing some budget amendments with our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding to hopefully be able to include other staff members in that to allow them the opportunity to get some training and qualify for a bonus as well. So there'll be other information on that as we get closer to that. And then another $54 for other minor adjustments to our allotments within the federal fund. Do y'all have any questions on that?
Just as a reminder, the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funds, those are the COVID relief funds that we got from the federal government.
Then we've got the special revenue fund, which have got the other specific revenue fund. We received an additional $86,024.98. That was for $100 additional for the CTE welding program donations, $6,638.74 for miscellaneous revenue, which includes we get refunds back to us when we have records requests for the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, miscellaneous refunds, and then our purchase card rebate, where we have a purchase card program that we participate in and we get funds reimbursed for that. An additional $46,875.78 for the Discovery Child Care Stabilization Grant, and this is allowing the Discovery program to provide bonuses to those employees that are staffing the program in the afternoons, as well as the administrators of the program, the coordinator. And then as well as she's able to use the great grant funds to help get things that they need for the program to operate. Supplies and materials. They're able to get some things to help out with the playgrounds because they use those in the afternoons as well. $3,399.63. That was, hang on, I might have lost my place. No, I didn't. Medicaid billing revenue, $20,861.36. Child nutrition donations, we got an additional $3,399.63. Communities for Students grant funds reimbursement, we process some payroll payments for some additional grant funds to increase the time that we had our tutors. So that was an additional $7,072.61. And then an additional $1,076.86 for another
round of funds that the Communities for Students program is wanting to use to help increase the time that their tutors are here working with our students. Do you have any questions on those? If you have no questions, then we recommend approval.
So I'll entertain a motion that we approve the budget amendments as presented by Ms. Hollingsworth.
Make a motion, we'll approve.
Mr. Jones, second. Mr. Caldwell, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hollingsworth.
Okay, moving to the supplemental funds for teacher compensation. In early February, we received guidance for the supplemental funds for teacher compensation from the Department of Public Instruction. These funds were appropriated by the North Carolina General Assembly, and they created a recurring appropriation to provide funding for local ed agencies in North Carolina to provide supplements to teachers and some qualifying school administrators. This will allow a payment for 2021-22 of up to $2,831 to certified staff members who qualify. So with this appropriation, we kind of need to keep in mind it is the responsibility of the local school board to determine the distribution of the local supplement within the confines of legislation. No individual salary supplement shall exceed the per teacher funding amount awarded to the LEA, and for 21-22, that is the $2,831. Qualifying staff members are certified teachers and certified instructional support staff that are required to be paid from the legislative certified teacher salary schedule. Principals and assistant principals paid based on what they would earn as a teacher. So if principals and assistant principals are paid on their respective principal or assistant principal salary schedule and not as a teacher, they do not qualify for this. And these funds may not be used to provide any supplements to central office employees or non-certified employees. While this funding for this allotment is recurring, the funding we receive may vary from year to year, so that's going to be important to note. We may not get the same amount every year, so that means the teachers will not get the same amount each year, even though it is a recurring allotment. These funds are considered a salary supplement. It is not considered a bonus or a stipend, and they are subject to retirement. The LEA is permitted to determine intervals of payment for salary supplements. And for the sake of time this year, since it was so late in the year when we received these funds and any guidelines to use these funds, it'll be a lump time sum that we plan on paying in May, sometime during the month of May. And then in subsequent years, what we plan to do is break it into two payments. One would be issued in December, and then the last one would be in May. The local board has the authority to determine which specific certified position, regardless of funding sources that are to be provided the salary supplements, and it's our hope that with this plan, we want you all to allow all of our certified staff, no matter the funding source, to receive this funding. An LEA is not required to provide the maximum per teacher supplement amount to any individual employee. LEAs do have the flexibility to determine the amounts of supplements provided for any individual position in accordance with identified staffing needs, and may elect to provide amounts less than the maximum to allow for distribution to a broader range of certified staff or eligible school administrator. So before we move on to the actual plan, and I go over that, do y'all have any questions on any of that information? That was a lot.
Yeah. So you were saying that we're allotted a certain amount that we can use, and then it can be distributed how we see, like, you don't have to give the maximum.
You do not have to give the maximum amount to each individual teacher, correct?
Okay.
We have enough to be able to do that.
Sure, okay.
But
there could be years where we wouldn't, and there may need to be a decision made if you need to do it in certain tiers.
But as it is right now, Ms. Hollingsworth or I can come up with no reason why we would not pay the maximum amount that we could, because if we don't use it, we have to give it back. That's all we can spend it on. So they got us locked in on that code. So
as a
So what you're
restriction.
saying is that there is no other way but give either the max to everybody that is a certified teacher.
As of now.
The position.
As of now, the funding allows for us to give the max amount and plus do the associated Social Security and Medicaid match with those funds that are distributed and the retirement match. So we have enough to fund it for all the teachers, regardless if they're state funded or local funded, which we don't have many local funded. But
So what we know for sure is that we have a 2-year state budget that
It's gonna have this money.
that's gonna have this money for this 2 years. Now, what it'll be after that, we
and
hope
it
it
could
stays.
go down for next year. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that it'll be $2,831 for next year either.
Yeah.
You said this will just be one lump sum in December.
This year will be one lump sum in May.
In May, sorry.
And
Next year
then
it'll be
in
December,
subsequent
May.
years, the plan would be to split it in 2 payments.
That way, if a teacher leaves us, you know, in February or January, they haven't gotten their whole sentence and then walked away.
So it looks like you'd be paying this out in May, correct?
Yeah, in May?
Yes,
Yes,
May.
this year.
This year.
This is a good retention
Yes.
plan as well.
Okay, in the event that a teacher does leave in the middle of the year and their amount is left in the bank account, does this mean that there would be no, because this would be extra funds that would be left over, so is that going to be just absorbed into the regular fund, or would that be due back
If they
to
were
the
to
state?
leave mid-year,
So let's say next year we have a teacher that gets their supplement in December, and in January they leave and go to another district. What happens to that $1,415.50?
well, you can't go above the maximum amount that the Department of Public Instruction has set for us based on a formula. So those funds will revert back to the state. If you hired a teacher to place that person, and
We
we
wouldn't lose
weren't
the money.
losing that position, then they would
Okay.
get the other half of the installment.
But we
That's
would
good.
lose it if we didn't replace that teacher, because we
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
go above.
We
Yeah,
might
but,
lose
I
it
mean,
if
it's
we
most
hire
likely we would replace the teacher we were
Right.
losing to begin
Exactly.
with, so they would get that other half.
Correct.
But I'll go over the plan with you. I'm not gonna read the whole first part of it. I'm gonna just skip down to where it's got the eligibility requirements, and I'll kind of help you understand the thought process on how people will qualify. And of course, just keep in mind, this year's gonna be a little different than it will be in future years. Okay, so to be eligible for the supplemental funds for teacher compensation, an employee must meet the requirements established below. Teachers and instructional support paid from the certified educator's salary schedules are eligible for the SFTC. I tried to break it down a little bit. That was a lot to say. This includes teachers, school counselors, psychologists, nurses, audiologists, speech language pathologists, media coordinators, social workers, etc. So again, as long as they're paid off that teacher salary schedule, then they would qualify. The requirements would be, in order to receive the SFTC, a qualifying employee must be employed. So in order to qualify for the SFTC for the 21-22 fiscal year, an employee must be employed prior to May 1st to receive a full payment to be paid sometime in May. Qualifying employees may have a prorated amount based on the number of days employed during the fiscal year. So if they came to us late in the year, we would want to adjust that amount based on the number of days they actually completed. You wouldn't, somebody that started with us in January, we wouldn't want to give them a full payment as if they'd been with us all year long. Subsequent payments will be as follows. Prior to December 1st, to receive the first installment of the SFTC to be paid in December, so the employee would need to be employed by December 1st to receive that payment in December. This is in future years. And any qualifying employee employed after the first working day of the school year will be paid a prorated amount based on the number of days employed. So there you go again. If they started later in the year, but still before December, it would be based on the number of days they completed. And then prior to May 1st, to receive the second installment, and this would be paid in May, And any qualifying employee employed after December 1st will be paid a prorated amount based on the number of days employed. So you basically just split the years in half for qualification. And then the amount shall be allocated as follows. In 21-22 fiscal year, $2,831 will be the total amount for this year. Subsequent payments will be as follows. Installment number 1 to be paid in December, and depending upon if it stays the same or if it changes, $1,415.50. But again, I put in parentheses so everybody understands amounts are subject to change annually depending on annual legislative action. And then installment number 2 to be paid in May of each year, with that being $1,415.50 if the amount stays at $2,831. But again, that amount is subject to change annually depending on annual legislative action.
No, they are. Yeah, everybody's going to get a check this year. The total team. Whatever the amount is. They'll get the 1 lump sum, and then because we didn't get it until later.
Any questions or comments from Collinsworth? If not, then I'll entertain a motion that we approve the supplemental funds for teacher compensation as it was presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Caldwell, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hollingsworth.
Ms. Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Ms. Hollingsworth. And next, we have the consent agenda. On that consent agenda, we have the approval of the board meeting minutes for January the 24th, regular session, and the special session from February the 21st, and then the first read for the revision to policy 7900, which is resignations.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we go into closed session for personnel.
Make a motion, we go into closed session.
I'll second it.
Respect, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.